Blessed be and happy Halloween and a Merry Samhain to all of you out there. In this video, I thought since it is the season for communication with the spirit world, I would talk to you about perhaps an activity you'd like to incorporate into your holiday season or even your spiritual practice. The practice of making offerings to spirits and loved ones and those we would like to connect to in the world of spirit, as well as even setting up a dedicated spirit altar in your home. I just got done doing a big weekly feast offering, and this is something that I do traditionally for myself and for my spirits and my deities, because I am very active in my spiritual practice and I do call upon them a lot, and I do abide by what you could call the rule of equivalent exchange or equitable exchange. So I do not just live my spirituality on the take and hope my gratitude is enough. I want to give back, I want to share, I want to commune. And it's a very important thing to remember when it comes to working with spirits, whether it's for your spiritual path, your magical path, your psychic path, it doesn't matter, that exchange is what keeps the connection strong. And this is the time of year, Halloween, Samhain, starting at the end of October, beginning of November, but the season itself actually lasts up until the December solstice, where traditionally, across many cultures worldwide, people would make the yearly offerings to their spirits on the other side, their loved ones on the other side, their ancestors or their deities, regardless of where you are in your spiritual practice, whether you're just beginning or you are thinking of jump-starting your practice a little bit, or you're looking to expand into the world of spirit communication. It's a beautiful time of year to get started. And the reason for that is because this is one of the times of year where the energies of the veils or the boundaries between worlds, the world of the physical and the world of spirit, is a lot thinner. And what that means is basically the energetic density, or what we could consider the energetic interference, or the energetic atmosphere, is a lot less compressed, just naturally. And that allows for smoother communication and a better connection across the board. So in this video, what we're going to do is talk about how you might want to establish offerings for communication, set up a spirit altar in your home, what you can offer, how you can make it simply, and also how to do it safely. Because, of course, we are walking into a territory of spirit communication, and we do want to proceed with care, with purpose, intent, dignity, and caution. Now, before anybody gets ahead of me, we're not going to be talking about what I've got going on my altar as such. This is my main working altar. This is where I charge my tools. I've got lots of altar tools here. Maybe we'll do a tour of my altar another time. This is where I make connections and communions with my deities. As you can see, I've got a pillar for my goddesses and a pillar for my gods. A spirit altar, or a dedicated spirit communication or contact or ancestor altar, is something very different and something very simple and something that you can design to suit you in a way that resonates with you and what you want for yourself and your home. It is not going to be a giant working altar, magical space like this unless you want it to be. But you don't need it to be. You don't have to go crazy. But getting back on topic, let's talk a little bit about what a spirit altar is, what its purpose is, what it's for, and what it can actually do for you. A spirit altar can be seen as almost like a phone booth or a phone jack for a landline. I know I'm dating myself, but you guys, if you're, you youngins can watch a movie and you'll know what I'm talking about. Where you basically have a dedicated space or port set up that becomes a portal over time that connects very specifically with only those that are connected to that altar space. This is what I recommend for people that would like to establish communication with spirits, but they're worried about doing something wrong. It kind of has its own approved guest list built in, which means that randos cannot just show up out of nowhere. Traditionally, these would be altars that you would make, again, for family members, loved ones, even pets that are no longer with us on the physical, but you would like to maintain a connection, relationship, and communication with on the physical. But you can also include and incorporate your deities, your spirit guides, your angels, your fae spirits, whoever you are working with as well. Altars themselves, like a spirit altar, are also very strong once they finally get established because they become their own energy center in the house. It creates, yes, a two-way portal that also allows for easier contact, opening up the veils, right? Getting rid of the compression and the denser energies that normally might interfere with spiritual engagement or even psychic engagement, and allow for energy to move back and forth. Now, how is it we can do this? We have to remember that even though we are in physical bodies, we are spirits too. But because we are in physical bodies and we are spirits at the same time, we are the bridge between the physical and the spiritual world. And so simply through working with our own energy and our own intention and our own consciousness and our own magic, we can actually open and close portals whenever we want, because that's what it means to be a spirit in the physical form. You are actually a portal. You are a bridge. We all are. We are being that portal when we are moving energy, when we are doing readings, when we are doing whatever. So when we build a spirit altar, what we are actually doing with that spiritual altar is we are creating a space or an energy center that does that too. When you're at that spirit altar, what you could do is you can, of course, offer your prayers, you can write letters, you can leave offerings, and you can encourage interactions with the spirits that you want to talk to. And again, it's safe because it's only the spirits that you allow to use that altar or that portal to enter into your world. Anyone or anything that is not those spirits, not allowed. They're not an energetic match. They won't be permitted to go in or out. So how do you get started? Well, the first thing you want to do is establish a space. Find a place in your home where you would like to actually set this up. Depending on what kind of tradition or sensibility you're looking to follow, you can establish your altar in a lot of different spaces in your house. So it's not like you are set to one specific spot. If there are, there are tons of different traditions with different corners and spaces and rooms that resonate to this work and resonate very well. And you just have to pick one that actually suits the layout of your home. So if one doesn't work, we can go with the other one. So for instance, a lot of people, especially a lot of people who might work with, Far Eastern practices or incorporate maybe, Chinese or Japanese or Korean spiritual practices or folk magic into their work, or Taoism or Shinto or anything like that, might actually incorporate a little bit of a Bagua sensibility, or feng shui, as is more commonly understood in the West. And so the way you work with that is that you would take any given room that is a public space in your home, and you would look at the front right or the front left corner of that room. However, if you don't want to do that, or you can't do that, you can also go for a very public place in your home where people gather for the sake of engagement with each other, or where people will commune and connect with each other in a way where it's all about the connections between each other, not activities next to each other. So to put it simply, the dining room or the kitchen. And the reason we want the dining room or the kitchen is because when you're in the dining room, it's all about the people you're with. And when you're in the kitchen, it's all about the people that you're with. When we think about family gatherings, social gatherings, parties, right? A lot of that energy, or the more intimate energy, tends to center around the dining room or the kitchen. The living room is okay. However, the living room is a space where sometimes, again, people can often be next to each other, but not really with each other. And so the energy can get a little bit scattered, right? One person's on their phone, the other person's watching TV, the other person is reading a book, or whatever is going on there. And so the energy is not as focused, it's not as coherent. So if you're going to go on a room basis, I would definitely say dining room or kitchen. You do not want to put this in a private space, all right? So do not put this in a space where you are, looking to be private. So no bedroom and no office for that matter. Home office tends to be a bit more remote. We're not in there all the time. You want to be somewhere where action is or action has historically been. So that's number one. Figure out where in your house you want to set this up. Clean up that space, right? You want to cleanse and clean. You want to declutter, and you want to make sure that it is nice, presentable, cozy, and harmonious, because you want it to be a homey space for your spirits and for you, because if you are serious about this, you're probably going to be doing a fair amount of work in that area, right? You might be writing letters, you might be burning candles, you might be lighting incense, making offerings, offering prayers, you might be doing communication work, so you want it to be something comfortable. Cleanse it down, wash the walls down if you want, burn sage, burn incense, use sound cleansing, whatever appeals to you in terms of a cleansing methodology, but you want to make sure that you are giving yourself a good clean slate to gradually build this altar on, so that fresh energy and conducive energy to spirit communication is there. Once you've done that, you got to find something that you're going to be able to set all of this up on. Now, you could use an end table, you could use a bookshelf, you can use a sideboard, you can use pretty much whatever you want, a writing desk even, it's fine. What you just want is something that's going to keep it up and elevated off the ground. Sometimes it's okay to have altars on the ground, not this kind of altar. But you want this elevated up and off the ground, and you want to make sure that the only things that are a part of that table or that desk or that bookshelf are connected to your intention, right? So you don't want it to be something that collects a lot of clutter. If you are going to use a bookshelf, you might not want to actually have books on it anymore. You might want to actually just kind of turn it into more of a display case for maybe photographs or crystals that resonate with spirit communication or offerings or things like that. But we don't want to have a lot of non-essential or irrelevant material in this space. If you want to incorporate colors, you can decorate it with an altar cloth if you would like to use a cloth, whether it's like a runner or just a full cloth. If you're curious about color and color correspondences, black and purple are traditional, but we can also work with dark blue, or I've actually incorporated here dark forest green. And each of those has their own correspondences to why they actually work. Black and purple are traditional for just all in all spirit communication in general. Black, by the way, does not mean bad. And we'll talk about color correspondences in another video, because I am sick and tired of people seeing black and immediately having a knee-jerk reaction. Black can actually be a very protective and very stabilizing and very grounding color. So black is good. It can also be really good because it helps protect the space, right, from other energies or unwanted spirits or unwanted people. Purple is the color of magic and the color of psychic communication, so that's a good one. And purple, of course, and black are traditional Halloween colors anyway, right? There's orange and black, but then there's also purple. Purple likes to sneak in there every once in a while. Dark navy blue is also really good because it resonates not only with the communication aspect that we're working on here, but it also carries a light protection to it as well. And dark forest green, a lot of people don't think of dark green as a spirit communication color, but it actually is. Because in many traditions, it actually corresponds to the cypress tree. So when we talk about sacred plants and plant spirits and things like that, a lot of people are very familiar with, say, pine or cedar, right? Because they are associated with protection, purity, and prosperity. But Cypress is sort of the, I guess you could say, the edgy third brother in the mix. Cypress is renowned for being the guard and the gatekeeper between realms. It is associated with the cycle of life and death and eternity. It is also a very strong purifying agent, and it is also a very strong tree for guarding the gates and the boundaries between realms and opening them and keeping things cleansed, purified, clear, and clean, and also relieving the senses of any kind of density that might be interfering with clear communication. And so I like to have the dark green for my work a lot. And of the the big three evergreen trees, right? Pine, cedar, cypress. I resonate with cypress. It's also associated with the moon, and you know me. Dark green, dark blue, purple, or black in a nutshell. If you have things that used to belong to the people you're trying to contact and connect with, you can use those as well. Or if you have things that you would like to put out there for people in general that that you know and that you care for, that you know that they would like, that would appeal to them, that they would remember from their life, that they would enjoy. That's basically the way you want to set it up. Once you've got the base of it set up, it's time to decorate. It's time to adorn your altar and decide what goes on and around it. Now, one of the things you want to do is make sure, again, you have already an idea in your mind of who is allowed to use this altar when it comes to the spirits you want to be connecting to. This is where safety comes in. I recommend creating a list in some way, an approval list. Now, sometimes an approval list is as simple as photographs of people, photographs of loved ones and relatives, or if you would like to do a written list, you can do that and just kind of slip it underneath your altar cloth if you're using a cloth, or you can simply display the list. That's perfectly fine as well. But a list of the names of people that are allowed to use that portal, whether they are people you knew in life, whether they are, again, spirit guides, deities, angels, pets, it doesn't matter. This sets a very important limitation on the portal and on the work. One of the things that I often see people make huge mistakes with spirit communication and spirit contact is when people kind of are haphazard, right? They go, oh, are there any spirits with a message for me? No. You don't do that. You don't do that with tarot cards. You don't do that with Ouija boards. You don't do that with spirit altars. You don't do that with spirit communication. You want to know what you're doing, right? If you don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the subject of your focus is, you're not doing anything with purpose and intent. You might be doing it with intensity, you might be doing it with curiosity, but you do not want to approach spirit communication when you don't know who you're trying to contact or who you wish to give access to your space, okay? It's kind of like with reading tarot cards. And nobody has a question and nobody's focused and people are just kind of talking and just throwing things out there and seeing what comes in. That's very unsanitary, spiritually speaking. When you're doing that with spirits, you might as well just drive to the subway and ask whoever is there, any rando there, to hop in your car and go for a ride because you don't know who's going to show up. It's a very unsafe, it's a very ignorant and very immature way to go about it. So you want to be careful not to do that. What you want to do is make your list. So for me, I have a list. Of course, my deities are also on that list, but of course you might notice I've got photographs and I have a list. I've got my photographs of my late kitties, Persephone, Rosie, Rambo, and Toby. I've got I've got my list of family members, list of friends, lists of friends' parents that are allowed to visit me as well. I make sure that everything is in proper order. When you stay general with spirit communication, again, you just don't know what you're going to get. You need to think. You need to think long and hard, right? You do your soul searching and you figure out what you want to say to who and to why. One of the other things that I often see out there, which is a very, very big mistake, when people just say, my ancestors, this is for my ancestors, and you're welcoming in for all your ancestors. Not all of our ancestors that we are related to, in our bloodlines, have our best interest in mind. They might not all connect with our spiritual path or our soul's path. And not all of our ancestors are always good people. And sometimes when you're dealing with spirit trouble, you could be dealing with an ancestor that is trying to maybe push an agenda onto your life, or maybe has already been the cause for a lot of problems in your life because of an agenda they've been trying to push for a very long time. So you don't want to say my ancestors in general. If you really do want to connect with ancestors, we'll talk about that in another video. But if you do know of some ancestors you'd like to connect to, ones that you've studied, ones that you've gotten familiar with, ones that you've spent your time learning about, that you know would be a good fit, okay, maybe make a conditional list there. But be careful in the beginning. Just something I want to say about that there. And again, we'll talk about that in another video here soon. When you're making a portal and you're making lists, you're walking into contract territory. And so you've got to be very careful when it comes to contracts. I personally do not like contracts. I don't like spiritual contracts. I don't even like contracts in the mundane world and in physical life. A lot of people don't really know that about me because I have a tendency to get very meticulous about contracts. I tend to go over everything with a fine-toothed comb, and then I'm practically putting the very ink the contract was written with under a microscope. And, maybe some of that's OCD, but, I've also just have a tendency to get very fascinated by contracts. Not because I think they're sacred, but because I know they can be perilous. So you want to be smart when you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your space, your work, your practice, and all of that. Make sure when you are connecting that you are addressing the people and the spirits you want to address directly. If you have things that used to belong to the people you're trying to contact and connect with, you can use those as well. Or if you have things that you would like to put out there for people in general that that you know and that you care for, that you know that they would like, that would appeal to them, that they would remember from their life, that they would enjoy. That's basically the way you want to set it up. And then what you do is you start practicing. Now, there is no big fancy formal ritual that you have to do if you don't want to. You don't have to spend an hour and a half within a circle to open a portal and call in Blizz Blaz and Him Ham or anything like that. This is a practice that starts to organically develop over time. It grows. And so once you have set everything up, you might want to dedicate your space. You might want to, write prayers on maybe slips of paper or on candles and burn those prayers. You might want to start calling in your deities or your loved ones by name and ask them to help you with establishing that sacred space. And then you can also make your offerings while you do that. So offerings, of course, can be things that you know that they liked in life, their favorite foods. In my offerings here, sometimes what I like to do is really switch it up. So this was an offering of feasts and treats. I've got all kinds of cream cakes, chocolate crepes, daifuku mochi, dried mango. I've got some fried bread, Chinese street food here, sake and soju. It all depends on what you want to give. But what you're doing is you're also giving an earthly pleasure to your spirits. And they receive that energy, right? It shows up for them on the other side. And then you can, of course, exchange, commune, and connect. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is that the more you do it, the stronger the portal and the stronger the connection comes. And you can even start asking them to show up and make themselves known to you in your life. You know, maybe you want to light a candle and say a prayer, or even write a letter to somebody and ask them to let you know that they're around, or to help you with something. Maybe it's a project, something you're trying to accomplish, something you're trying to get done. And what you do then is you give more offerings, and the exchange gets stronger, and therefore the relationship gets stronger. You probably won't in the beginning start getting communication back in a way where you can hear, sense, or feel in more typical ways. You might notice signs start to show up more first, and then the sensations happen. But let it build up over time. Eventually, you might even start to notice that your own senses are becoming keen, becoming more heightened, becoming more sophisticated. And then the communication itself becomes a lot more trippy and interesting. Even dream visits happen when you start working in that way. But this is a great time of year to start doing this, whatever you want to get out of it. Just make sure that you're being smart, safe, sane, and accountable, and you're doing this with purpose, intent, and respect for the art. It can be not only a lot of fun, but it's also a great way to evolve your practice and bring more of an enhanced, evolved, and intimate connection to the world of spirit, which again, we're all already a part of. So that is what I've got for you all. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget, my name is Nico, Son of Selene, and if you ever want to get a personal reading with me, head on over to my website, integrativemysticism.com. Leave some comments in the down bar below if you'd like me to follow up on anything. Maybe we'll come back soon and do a bit of an altar tour, and we'll talk a little bit more about spirit communication as the season goes forward. Y'all take care, and I'll see you again soon.